The year is 2019. Mr. Lee, a North Korean programmer, is sitting in his tiny apartment, waiting. Finally, a message.
A blue taxi will be waiting for you with its lights on and engine running. You will change taxis twice before switching to another car for the destination.
Okay, I will put my clothes on at 3:30 a.m.
Act calm. God will be with you.
I feel strange, but this is not fear.
This is an excerpt of a real text conversation between a North Korean software engineer, who for the purpose of this video I will be calling Mr. Lee, and a South Korean pastor named Chun Ki-won. Mr. Lee was sent to China in a group of workers who were trained by the North Korean government for only one purpose: to make them as much money as possible. Mr. Lee, as a software engineer, was especially lucrative. The group was constantly monitored by a handler who ruled their group with an iron fist. They were all forced to spy on each other, and any disobedience was met by heavy beatings. This is his story. To better understand what happened, we need to go back in time a little bit. Mr. Lee grew up on the outskirts on Pyongyang in relative wealth. His mother was only a seamstress, but his father was a government official working directly for Kim Jong-il. That brought privileges with it, such as not living in poverty and being able to attend a good school. For North Korean standards, he lived a good life. He had friends, an apartment, and did fairly well in his studies. He proved especially adept in mathematics and computer science. Yet there were cracks in the perfect facade. At first, young Lee didn't notice them. He was a spoiled child, so why would he? He did, however, notice that something was wrong with his father. He seemed stressed, leaving the house early and coming home very late. He didn't think much of it until one faithful day in December when his father didn't come home. His mother tried reaching out to him through his colleagues, but to no avail. It was only 51 hours later when they found out what had happened. The great leader, Kim Jong-il, had perished. In his stead, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il's son, was appointed party leader and de facto ruler of North Korea. What wasn't advertised in the news was that one of Kim Jong-un's first official rulings was to detain a number of government officials, young Lee's father amongst them. They were never seen again. For the first time, young Lee saw a different side of North Korea. His father was gone, and there was absolutely nothing he or his mother could do about it. Without his salary and influence, they quickly had to move out and find a cheaper place to live in. Money was tight, and the little freedoms they had were gradually taken away. The only saving grace was him being allowed to stay at his school. The government had already invested too much into his education to drop him now. Yet, that did nothing against the growing hate and fear in Lee's mind. He was yearning for freedom. So much so that when a few years later he got the opportunity to work in China, he jumped on it. The internet is blocked in North Korea for all but the most important people. This is why workers are often sent abroad to work in restaurants, as menial labor or IT worker. The latter was what Mr. Lee was supposed to do. Together with a group, he was transported to China and housed in an apartment complex, all under watchful eyes of their North Korean handler. But Mr. Lee wasn't about to give up on his dreams of freedom. He got into contact with Mr. Chun, a South Korean pastor who was well known for helping North Koreans defect. They were in contact for a few months, and after an especially vicious beating, Mr. Lee wrote this.
I am sorry, but please understand why I don't think I can hold out. I wish I could leave this place right now.
We need to find the safest, not the fastest way.
I am sorry to say this, but I need the fastest way, please.
He was desperate, and Pastor Chun eventually obliged. He got the money for a broker that would take Mr. Lee from China's northern Jilin province all the way to Thailand. Once there, he would surrender himself to the authorities who would deport him to South Korea. On the morning of his escape, Mr. Lee was prepared. He changed his clothes into something new, something that his minder wouldn't recognize, but the brokers would. Outside, a blue taxi was already waiting for him. His heart was pounding as he got in. Every moment, he thought, Chinese police would swarm him and deport him back to North Korea. But nothing happened. He switched taxis another 2 times before finally getting to his broker's. He got into their car, and without saying a word, they sped toward the first safe house. They drove quietly for hours before getting to the safe house. Upon arriving, he immediately noticed something was off. There was someone already waiting for them. Everything went wrong from there. Somehow, Chinese police had caught wind of what was going on and swiftly apprehended the whole group, including Mr. Lee. He never made it to South Korea. In fact, only 67 people managed to do so in 2022, a vanishingly small number compared to how many are attempting it. Mr. Lee wasn't part of that lucky group. He was deported back to North Korea, where he is likely to this day being worked to death in a camp. And that is a tragedy.